Now, for a show taking place in the Attitude Era, and after having possibly one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time, this one was really bad. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another edition of WrestleMania Review Series. And this time we got WrestleMania 15. Oh my goodness, this was not good, but I do respect that it tried. It really does feel like a WrestleMania spectacle. First of all, they had Boys to Men sing America the Beautiful. They had Isaac Hayes there, Main Street Posse. You had a big, like, mega celebrities in here who were very popular in the 90s. Like I just mentioned, those guys. This took place in Philly, the home of ECW. So it was very obvious that they're trying to um, give thanks to like the ECW guys, like the ECW fan base. So that's probably why they ended up going to Philly. If I'm being honest, that and the crowd was pretty good. Maybe not great in this show. Granted, the Philly crowd was kind of tired of all the hokey pokey stuff. There was definitely a showing in the show that Vince Russo had to go. I mean, he eventually goes to WCW, and Vince Russo is a good writer, but this show was not a good example. There's a limit to what he can do, bro. And this is not a good show. I'm sorry. This is a very very bad show, and it felt like they were trying so hard to do all these other cool things that led to nothing, and it really hurt it. Yeah, this is how you showcase your next top guy. D'Lo Brown was building up to be a solid guy in the mid card division. Granted, they do a match in the pre-show just to lead up to the tag team title match later on the show, but I don't know. They just went about it wrong, and then to top it off, they do a very awful payoff to something that was very hot. Around this time, both WWF and WCW had something good, um, and they would ruin it. Like example, Goldberg lost the streak um, not that long before this, and they do something really stupid on this show, which really hurt them in the long run. But we'll get to that when we get to it. But let's just get on with the show. Like I mentioned, Boys to Men kicked off America the Beautiful. They had a really good video package, and it really felt unique to WrestleMania. It had this like epic music, and then they transitioned to that Attitude Era WrestleMania 15 theme song, which I really enjoyed. The dun 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 dun. Highly underrated WrestleMania theme. No lyrics, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I can't really fault it for that. But we'll just start off with the first match, which was Billy Gunn, Al Snow, and Hardcore Holly in a triple threat hardcore rules match for the hardcore championship. Nothing fun to run home about. It was an okay, solid match. It was just had its moments of goodness to it, but nothing really big. Hardcore Holly wins. Good for him, but I don't know. Maybe they could have kept it on Billy Gunn. Um, Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett defeated D'Lo Brown and Tess, who won a battle royal before the show started. During Sunday Night Heat, and it really showed that they had nothing for any of these four participants, and it it was lame. I was really disappointed because all four of these guys could have been good, but like yeah, that was just very devastating. And also, they took off Owen Hart's theme. They tried to make it edgy, but it wasn't. He had a really badass theme in the early stages of the 90s. At WrestleMania 10, that theme song that he had was awesome. They really didn't want to do anything with Owen Hart after Brett left them high and dry. And then to top it off, Owen Hart was on the way out. He was ready to retire. Um, he ended up becoming the Blue Blazers. This is unfortunately Owen Hart's last WrestleMania. It's a very sad thing. Not only that, but just the way he died, and it was just a very devastating moment in the history of professional wrestling. I don't want to talk more about it, so let's just move on from this. Yeah, bad tag team match. Don't like it. Next up, the first dud of many duds to happen on this show. We bring back the Brawl for All, which hasn't been talked about up to this point for a while. Bart Gunn, the winner of the Brawl for All, who basically they had nothing for after winning that Brawl for All tournament. One of the dumbest ideas in the history of professional wrestling. They had nothing for him, so what do? They bring in a big celebrity Butterbean to cap off this whole story. They basically do a real boxing fight that ended in 35 seconds, given that Butterbean, a real boxer, knocks out Bart Gunn, and Bart Gunn went nowhere after this, and it is very embarrassing and really sad, too, if I'm being quite honest. Mankind defeated the Big Show. This match was the first match that I genuinely cared about because it actually had something to pay off at the end, which was a singles match where the winner will become the referee of the main event. Now, I mentioned that Mankind won. He got DQ'd, and again, I wasn't big on DQ finishes, but this is one that worked because of the payoff. So basically, Mankind has a Big Show on a hold, on the sock hold, and up to this point, Mankind was feuding with The Rock. We all thought it was gonna be Rock and Mankind at WrestleMania. It wasn't, and then Big Show, who has just been established as this new giant. They basically didn't want Big Show to look bad, but they ended up doing it anyways. But anyways, Big Show gets disqualified. Vince McMahon comes out. He gets so angry he slaps the Big Show. Big Show knocks him out. This is not your typical KO punch. He just like smacked him a little bit and knocked him out. And then Big Show gets arrested. Mankind is injured after Big Show beat the crap out of him. So the whole story is like, oh, who's gonna take over as the referee in the main event? We'll get to that later. Let's just move on to the IC title match, the Intercontinental Championship, a four corners elimination match between Road Dogg, Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and Val Venis. Four really good names in the Attitude Era. It was very clear that they were trying to make the New Age Outlaws into single stars, and it just ended up not working, especially for Billy Gunn, because he had the wrestling, he just didn't have the promo skills that Road Dogg had. Road Dogg had potential of being a good single star. Granted, it went nowhere. Just given the stories that were given, but anyways, this wasn't your typical four corners elimination match. If anything, this one really disappointed me. If it was just straight up four guys fighting all at once, I would have liked it. But it starts with two people, and then you go to the side, then they tag you. At one point, two people get counted out. I forgot who. But eventually, Road Dogg retains the Intercontinental Championship. Good for Road Dogg, not good for the fans. Then we get, oh my goodness, Triple H versus Kane. A match that they overdid in the Ruthless Aggression era. This was the precursor to that. I actually was excited for this. I'm like, Triple H and Kane, you can't really go wrong with this. Throughout the night, they had the San Diego chicken throughout the night, and I'm just like, okay, this is just random. Granted, it pays off here because as Kane enters, the chicken comes out, tries to beat up Kane, only to behold it was P. Rose. He was trying to get his revenge from last year. Gets tombstone yet again, and then we get the match that we wanted. It started off okay. It was not that bad, but then Triple H gets disqualified after China's interference, which could have worked, honestly. Like, China was on Kane's corner. It was like, oh, will China stay with DX, or will he be betrayed? How is this going to work? And I personally wish that China did betray Kane, and then Triple H just pinned them 1, 2, 3. Maybe they didn't want Kane to lose twice in a row, but I'm like, who cares? You could redeem him later. I would have just personally preferred Triple H to win clean here. Well, not clean, but at least have China win. And this, I just didn't want a DQ finish. It worked for Mankind and Big Show. We didn't need it for this one. Then we get on to the worst match of the show. I can't believe I'm saying that. Sable versus Tori. This was bad. Tori is an awful person on the mic. She's not even hot. Which was weird. I'm like, why didn't they put this? The original plan was Luna Vachon versus Sable. Around this time, Luna Vachon was on the way out. She was very difficult to work with, which probably explains why she hasn't been on the Hall of Fame yet. They have her in the Legacy Hall of Fame, but not the proper Hall of Fame. But regardless, they do this match. It is botch after botch after botch. Sable is not a good wrestler. She's just a hot chick. But man, this is just terrible. The Sable bomb, it looks awful every time she delivers it. Tori can't even like do a roll up properly. This is just terrible. Um, Listen, I know it's bad to like Brian Panty matches, but if it was that, nobody would have been complaining. But they actually tried to do a wrestling match. If anything, they could have done. I understand why they didn't do China versus Sable, given that China was on the corner of Kane, that whole story there, and then plus China ends up doing way much bigger things than this. Anyways, yeah, this is a terrible match. Don't go out of your way and watch it. Then we get to the second best match of the show, but one of the worst booking decisions in the Attitude Era. We get for the European Championship Shane McMahon versus X Pac, and based on the promo package, I was hyped for this match. I was like, oh, Shane McMahon acts like he's all tough, like he's from the streets and all, but in reality, he was just a kid from private schools who had everything for his life, given that Vince basically was already wealthy. So Shane McMahon acting like he's from the street, it was kind of funny. The whole X Pac sucks shirt was perfect. X Pac was red hot. He was actually more over than most of DX at this point, even though his theme song is similar to DX with his own twist, like X Pac, X Pac, Degenerate. Like that is just a badass theme. I really enjoyed this match. Shane McMahon can bring it. X Pac can bring it. They had a really good match. That unfortunately ends really bad. I wasn't a big fan of the finish. Basically, a lot of guys interfere. It's interference, but then out of nowhere, Triple H pedigrees X Pac just because he didn't want to be the he basically wanted to be the front man of DX, and plus around this time DX was getting over as baby faces. I think they wanted to keep him heels. But then Shane does steals the victory. Shane wins, so that's why. But then this leads to X Pac versus Triple H at Backlash, which was a good match. But I I don't know. This was just bad. I mean, DX was red hot. Why would you want to split them up? Imagine DX versus the Ministry, like with the proper members of DX. Maybe they could have brought Shawn Michaels back from retirement earlier, if they really tried. But yeah, this was just a terrible booking decision. And it made no sense given the fact that like DX reunites over and over nowadays. This is practically erased. Like a lot of the Vince Russo stuff, they never really commit to it. They erase it from history. And it was really dumb. Like why didn't they just have X Pac win? Like X Pac was the most over babyface. Fine. Look at Jey Uso. Granted, he did split from the Bloodline, but that's because the Bloodline was meant to be heel. There's no way the Bloodline could have been a babyface faction. It is now, but you know what I'm saying. The point is, yeah, they just should have had X Pac win, and no one would be complaining. Like, imagine that you have a show where literally three of your DX members walk out as champion. Billy Gunn could have walked out as champion. Road Dogg could have walked out as champion, and X Pac could have walked out as champion. And then Triple H is like on the verge to go for the world title. That's how I would have done it, but who cares? I'm just a smart wrestling fan, right? Moving on to, oof, man, this was bad. Oh my goodness. Undertaker versus Big Bossman in a Hell in a Cell match. Now, Hell in a Cell, the very first Hell in a Cell match in WrestleMania history. Now, the story was there. Pretty much Undertaker getting into the mind of Vince McMahon. He's basically recruiting and controlling other wrestlers. He becomes this like master ministry leader, cult leader, and now he's chasing after Vince McMahon. Um, I'm shocked that in this they just do Vince and Undertaker. Granted, it makes sense why they didn't, given the fact that um, Vince just wrestled against Stone Cold Steve Austin. If they were gonna do this, they I think the story that was there is just I wasn't a big fan of Big Boss Man being the guy to be in this position wrestling the Undertaker because basically they just needed like the head of security to take on the Undertaker, which didn't pay off. Big Boss Man wasn't really built like a viable contender to fight the Undertaker. Granted, we didn't know that this was the streak moving forward. I've always said it should have been Shane and Undertaker here. Imagine the Hell in a Cell match that we could have gotten earlier if they were both in their prime. Like they could have been like, um, they could have had the story of Vince being like, "Son, you want to take over my company? Fine, but you got to take on the Undertaker for me." And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I got it." But in reality, he's scared. They could have done something. Granted, they would have been wrestled a lot different than what it is, but Big Bossman, and then to top it off, this is just sloppily put together. Just punch, punch. The cell didn't even need to be there. It made sense at the end why they used the cell, but even that was awful. It was they barely even use any weapons. There was a part where Undertaker's arm gets handcuffed, but then the handcuffs break, so that meant nothing. The match just continued. They just didn't know what to do. Eventually, Tombstone, they put us out of our misery. Undertaker wins. But the part that people talk about is when the Brood comes out on top of the cell. They break open, they throw in a hanger, and then they hang the Big Boss Man as the cell uh, holds up, and then practically they killed the Big Boss Man without admitting to it. And yeah, this was just this went too far, even for me. And I'm just like, we like the edginess, but I'm like, you got to keep in mind that a live crowd is watching this, and you're really gonna put someone or claim that someone was murdered in public. Like, no, that's not gonna work. Especially now. If they did this now, forget it. They would have been canceled. On to the main event. Now, throughout the night, they were talking about like who's gonna be the referee. Mankind's injured. Big Show's arrested. Vince was about to claim to be the referee, but then Shawn Michaels, who at this point was like in charge, basically kind of like what Triple H is now as like a head creator and stuff like that, or like a chief content creator, something like that. I don't know what Shawn Michaels' position was, but basically he was in charge, after his retirement. But basically, Shawn Michaels says, Vince, you're not gonna be involved in this. We're not gonna have the corporation get involved in this. So you're out of here. The corporation's out of here. This match will be no DQ. And sure enough, it starts. The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, they beat the living crap out of each other. This was a great match, the best match of the entire show. I just was really a big fan of this. Yeah, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, they had great chemistry. A lot of people said it should have been Mankind in this position, but you got to keep in mind Stone Cold is the face of the company, and he's like a badass baby face. And it's not like they didn't pay off the storyline. Throughout the night, throughout the match, I should say, they had referees come out, screwy finish after screwy finish. Eventually, Mankind makes his way. Austin hits the stunner. Mankind is your referee. 1, 2, 3. Stone Cold Steve Austin walks out as the champion. He celebrates. Vince McMahon is angry. He is pissed off. He's like, "Give me my belt." Stone Cold was about to give him the belt, and then he just smacks him. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was an amazing moment. I really, really enjoy it. That match really saved the show. There's a couple other things. Not everything was poorly wrestled. Things were poorly booked, which is what really hurt this show. Now, I've been actually going back and forth on what to give this show because I don't think it deserves um an F, but giving it a C is a lot harder too. So I think I went the safe route and giving this show a D plus. I think the savior of the show is the main event. A couple other good stuff as far as wrestling goes help, but there was three awful matches. Taker Bossman, Sable Tori, the Brawl for All. Those three matches in the same show, that's just no. Everything else was like take it or leave it, but there was really no build up. Really, they only build up a couple of DX stuff, Undertaker versus the Corporation, and of course, Mankind, Big Show, Austin, Rock. That drama. I think they just needed to properly put everybody in the right position. So with that, I'm gonna give it a D plus. It's not really the talent's fault; it's the booking's fault. Let's move on to WrestleMania 2000. We'll see you then.